It all started on a quiet Saturday morning, the kind where you just want to sip coffee on the porch and enjoy a little peace until. Karen from the HOA stormed over like she owned the whole neighborhood, with her clipboard clutched tight and that familiar "you're doing something wrong" look on her face. She marched right up to me and said, "You're not allowed to be here." I was stunned. I've lived here longer than she's even been on the board. But somehow, she thought, she had the power to kick me off my own property. At first, I thought it was just a misunderstanding. Maybe she got the addresses mixed up or was having a bad day. But then she doubled down, talking about violations that didn't exist and rules no one had ever heard of. It wasn't about the rules, it was personal. And when I calmly asked to speak to the board about it, she said, "I am the board." That's when things started to unravel fast. Because Karen wasn't ready for what came next. Turns out, a few board members had also had enough of her power trips. And this stunt of hers, was the last straw. What started as a petty attempt to kick me out turned into a full-blown HOA showdown that no one saw coming. Trust me, the moment she realized she wasn't untouchable. That's when the real drama hit. And let's just say the meltdown was spectacular. C. What Karen didn't realize is that the HOA isn't just made up of one person barking orders. It's a group of neighbors who actually live here and care about the community. And for months, she'd been rubbing just about everyone the wrong way. Petty fines, surprise inspections, rude emails, you name it, people were fed up, but most just stayed quiet to avoid drama. That morning, though, she messed with the wrong person. I wasn't going to just roll over. I started asking around, nothing aggressive. Just honest questions to the other board members. Did you approve this notice? Were you told about these supposed violations? Every time I got the same answer. Nope. Turns out, Karen had been bypassing protocol, making decisions solo, and trying to act like she had more power than she really did. The deeper I looked, the more bizarre it got. She'd even edited board meeting minutes to make it look like everyone agreed with her. The more I shared what I found, the more the board began to turn. One of them even said, "She's been running this place like her own little kingdom." Still, nobody wanted to be the one to start a fight. That's where I came in. I wasn't trying to cause trouble. I just wanted fairness. But once the rest of the board saw how far she'd pushed it, the air shifted. People were watching now. Neighbors were whispering. Something big was brewing, and Karen had no idea the storm was coming. That week, things got tense fast. Karen must have sensed something was up because suddenly, she started doubling down, sending more violation notices, calling for emergency meetings, and even threatening fines for the smallest things, like a flower pot being off color or a mailbox being an inch too tall. It was clear she was trying to scare people into silence. But instead of backing off, neighbors started comparing stories. My inbox filled up with messages like she did the same thing to us, and we thought we were the only ones. One neighbor, Mr. Ramirez, shared how Karen had fined him 3 times for a noisy dog that had already passed away months earlier. Another family said she tried to block their home renovation even after the board had approved it. The more stories I heard, the more it became clear Karen had been operating unchecked for far too long. People were angry, but more than that, they were tired. Tired of walking on eggshells in a place that was supposed to feel like home. Meanwhile, I kept digging through HOA records, bylaws, and board emails. And that's when I found something strange. Karen had signed off on a contract using the HOA's name. But there was no record of board approval. It wasn't just petty rule pushing anymore. This could be serious financial misuse. Authorized decisions. I didn't want to believe it at first, but the more I uncovered, the harder it became to ignore. The board was about to face a truth none of us were ready for, and Karen's grip was slipping. The next HOA meeting was scheduled for Thursday evening, and by then, the entire neighborhood was buzzing. You could feel it in the air. Something big was coming. People who hadn't shown up to a meeting in years were planning to attend. Even the quiet folks at the end of the cul-de-sac, who never got involved in anything, were suddenly asking for copies of bylaws and board decisions. Karen had no clue how much had been brewing behind the scenes in the days leading up to the meeting. She ramped things up even more. I got another violation notice, this time for hosting unauthorized gatherings, which apparently meant having 2 friends over for a BBQ. Another family said she threatened legal action over a decorative flag. It was like she was trying to assert every ounce of control she thought she had left. But each move just made things worse. More neighbors came forward. More proof surfaced. More board members started privately expressing concern. But no one was sure how to confront her without causing a scene. Then, a day before the meeting, someone anonymously slipped a folder into my mailbox. Inside were photocopies of old HOA votes, emails between Karen and vendors, and one document that stopped me cold, a signed agreement with a landscaping company the board never approved. With thousands of HOA dollars spent. That was the moment I knew this wasn't just about petty power anymore. This was about misuse of funds, broken trust, and a community ready to push back. Just when I thought things couldn't get any messier, another twist dropped, and this one changed everything. That same evening, as I was reviewing the documents, from the anonymous folder, my phone buzzed. It was a message from Dana, one of the more reserved board members. She'd always kept her distance from the drama, but now she was asking to meet in person, said it was important. We met at the neighborhood park, away from the prying eyes of Karen's constant walks. Dana looked nervous. She leaned in and whispered, "I didn't send that folder, but I know who did, and there's more." Then she pulled out her own set of papers, email chains between Karen and a contractor tied to one of her relatives. Apparently, Karen had been funneling small contracts for neighborhood improvements to this guy without ever disclosing the connection. Even worse, Dana said she had reason to believe Karen had altered the HOA's financial reports to make it all look clean. That crossed a whole new line. Now it wasn't just misuse of authority or shady paperwork. This was starting to look like conflict of interest and potential fraud. And Dana, she had kept quiet all this time out of fear. She threatened to have me removed, she said quietly. Said she could turn the board against me if I didn't stay in line. I walked home with my mind racing. What started as a petty feud was now unraveling into something far bigger, and the whole board might be pulled into it. The night of the HOA meeting finally arrived, and the clubhouse was packed. People stood shoulder to shoulder, some with notebooks, others just ready to finally say what they'd been holding back. Karen walked in like nothing was wrong, clipboard in hand, wearing that same smug expression she always had. But this time, the room didn't quiet down for her. It stayed loud, full of whispers and side eyes. The tension was thick. When it was my turn to speak, I didn't hold back. I laid out everything, my own violations, the records Dana had shared, the anonymous folder, the questionable contracts. I showed proof. The room fell silent. Even a few board members looked genuinely shocked. Karen interrupted, of course, tried to call it all fake and taken out of context. But then Dana stood up. Her voice cracked a little, but what she said silenced the room. "I was scared," she admitted. "But it's all true, and it's been going on for way too long." That was the moment the board voted to suspend Karen's authority on the spot. She stood there, stunned, as the very people she tried to control turned against her. But here's the twist. Just as the meeting wrapped up, someone from the back of the room spoke up, a quiet man I didn't recognize. He said, "Actually, I'm with the county compliance office." And I've been following this for weeks. Karen's face went pale. Turns out we weren't the only ones watching. The room went completely still. Even Karen, always ready with a snappy reply, had nothing to say. The man from the county compliance office calmly explained that multiple complaints had triggered a quiet investigation weeks earlier. He'd been gathering information, attending meetings in plain clothes. And now, with everything laid bare, he had more than enough to file a formal report. Karen's expression shifted from disbelief to panic. She tried to defend herself, but no one was listening anymore, not even the board. Within a week, Karen resigned. The board issued a public statement promising more transparency and accountability going forward. Dana was appointed interim chair, and together with the other members, he started reviewing every past decision Karen had pushed through. They found enough irregularities to reverse several fines and refund misused fees. For the first time in a long while, the neighborhood felt like a real community again. As for me, I didn't ask for any recognition. I just wanted things to be fair. But I'll admit, it felt good when neighbors I barely knew came up to say thank you. Even the Ramirez family dropped off cookies with a handwritten note that said, "You stood up when we were too tired to." So, Karen thought she could kick me out, but all she did was push too hard and wake up a neighborhood that had been a sill.